we've got Simon Phillips, Mark Savage, and Nigel Evans to come on stage and talk to you about some of the things that we're starting to do to grow and further grow the community. So Simon, Mark, Nigel, please come on stage. Just before I do start, you're going to hear, well, you're starting to hear now, a song that's called Express Yourself that's been played. That was, it's been originally remastered and reconstructed, composed by Simon's son, who's a very talented man. So, Adam Phillips, wherever you are, thank you very much for providing the music. Thank you. Okay, so this session, chaps, so we've started working with Mark, Simon and Nigel a bit more closely over the last couple of years as really sort of helping us and be ambassadors and advisors to the GCC as we grow and scale this community. And what we wanted to do is just give you a bit of a flavour of things that we've been piloting. Some of you that have been sort of talking to me is around how do we build some communities of interest. The community is vast, okay, and it's very diverse, which you're seeing today. How do we start building communities of interest? We've had different, I'm not going to mention them now, but people here have said, well, I would like to, you know, get a community of practice, community of interest in this area, this sector, this geography, this region. So we've got this notion of GC clubs. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
You're right, yeah? We've got this notion of GC clubs, and we're going to use this session now to talk you through some of the concepts of clubs, make it a bit more interactive, and hopefully you're going to enjoy it. But I know I'm not really involved in this, am I, that much? If at all.
I'm sure you will be.
All right, I'll sit here then. All right, thanks. Go on, I'll hand over to you guys. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Nathan, and thank you, everyone. So, first thing we want to say is Simon, Nigel, and I have come together to look at the concept of GC clubs together with the GC community. And we've come together and we've got 3 clubs. And for the 3 of us, we don't see them in competition with each other. We see them all joined at the hip. And for us, the success of all 3 clubs is really, really important. Now, we're going to go through the clubs in a second, but this brings us on to the concept of the GC community. We've all been GCologists a while, as you can tell by the grey hair and the receding hairlines. So we've been around the GC community, some more than others, I might add. And effectively, we've come together and we've looked at these clubs, and we see they're really, really important for the GC community as a whole. The GC community for the 3 of us is really, really important. And what we want from this session is really to listen to you guys, understand what you see as the concept of value in these GC clubs, and also just give us some input. You know, how can we make these better, says the polisher, and how can we get everyone engaged in these? Our ambition is, by the end of this session, is really to get everyone in this room engaged in at least one of these clubs as possible. Next slide, please. Oh, get back one slide. So there are 3 clubs, as you can see. The Growth Club, Change Club and Site Club. I'm going to talk very, very briefly about the GC Growth Club, and then I'm going to hand over to Simon and Nigel. So the GC Growth Club, in essence, the purpose of it is to forge a community of like-minded business people who are all interested in 3 things: business growth, business networking, and business collaboration, embedding the GC Index at its heart. Now, within the Growth Club community, what's important to us is really client involvement, listening to client stories, listening to client engagements, and listening to client experiences, because that's ultimately how we're going to get the best growth experiences. Now, up until now, in the GC Growth Club, we've had Tuition Extra and the CEO, Ruth Minnell, come along and talk about her experiences of the GC Index. They're an educational firm. They use the GC Index to get better engagement amongst their leadership team, but also align roles and responsibilities across their organisation. Last month, we talked about Gunnell Energy within the club, with the notion that Emma Weston was going to be here today to talk about the success and what's going on in that. And next month, I'm hoping to have a managed services company come and talk about the success of what they've done, particularly through the lens of developing a business strategy using the GC Index. So without further ado, quick plug for the club. 2 p.m. on Monday, if anyone's interested, please let me know in the break, and I'll send you the link for the club. I'm going to hand over to Simon.
Thanks, Mark. It's great to be here today. The GC Change Club is, as it says on the tin, it's all about change. So I've got a few people together a couple of weeks ago who are active in the change space, and we sort of thought through, so what could be a good structure that we can then get out and engage people who are either they're working as people making change happen inside their organizations, or they're supporting people, either individuals, teams, or organizations, to make change happen. So it's a very broad remit in that sense. The 3 words we landed on were to connect, to challenge, and to co-create. We did have a 4th one, but it didn't begin with C, and it was just learn. So we'll just have to go with that for now until you can think of something better. The concept really is to be more engaging and to ensure that there are small groups of people within the club that are able to talk and explore and really start to just get a sense of what's possible with the GC Index and in this field of change and transformation, because as we all know, it's pretty much everywhere right now. So my plug for the club is it's next Tuesday at 12 o'clock. You can find out a bit more in the expo part of Hop-In. So if you want to have a look there, get in touch afterwards and we can get you registered and send you the link for that event. So it's 12 o'clock next Tuesday. Nigel.
Okay, thanks, guys. Psych Club, basically open to all GCologists. You do not have to be a psychologist to join Psych Club. Basically what it is anybody who has a passion to put a bit more psychology into their work and know that it adds value. And I've been working with a number of people independently, first of all, over the last few months, and it seems to sort of fall around 3 areas. The first is practice, that is in terms of what you're doing. Very many people are very comfortable with coaching, assessment, perhaps going on team building. But what about going further? We know that the GC Index as a tool touches the areas that other tools do not reach. So we've been looking at many different areas, and whether they be in business, that's looking at boards and how their investors look at their focus on with their proclivities, whether it's looking branding in terms of how people's brands connect with their companies in terms of the company founder, or whether it goes even further into sports psychology, child psychology, and educational psychology. The second area is really about looking at research. Dr. John and I have been on stage at international conferences. We will continue to do that. We would love to be there with you, work alongside you, presenting with you and with your data, whether it's a psychological conference or whether it is a trade conference that you'd be interested in presenting at. And the third area is really about psychological theory. It's like there's a lot of theories out there. How can we put them into practice to make and accelerate your business? So some very good work done with creativity, and we put that into workshops that have been worked upon for business owners to survive in their business. So if some of that is interesting for you, we've got a. Thank you very much. I got at least one person signing up. No, there are a number of in the wings as well there. Basically, if you're interested in that, we are doing a first gathering 2 o'clock on the 4th of October. If you cannot make it, don't worry. Please input, please connect with me anyway, because I see this. We've done a lot of work individually at the moment with those GCologists. So I don't want you to lose out and have to wait for the next month or 2 months. Please get in touch and we can accelerate things pretty fast. Thank you.
Brilliant, thanks guys. Which one's the best? No, it's a joke. Right, so...
They're all of equal importance.
Thank you, Mark, thank you. So have you guys got a bit of an activity for us now? Simon? Yeah, okay. Well,
Next slide, please.
Don't worry, I've just pressed the click. I see that.
So, For those of you who are online, what we'd like you to do is submit your answers to those questions in the chat, and we're going to pick those up as well. So basically, this is a bit of research gathering, which extremely makes Mark and Nigel extremely happy. And so, yeah, we want to find out your answers to those questions. For the people in the room, you get a chance to now go and talk to somebody that you haven't talked to already and start a little bit of networking. The plan is we're going to give you 13 minutes, somewhere between 10 and 13 minutes. That's for the polishers in the group. And go and have a chat about this. Can you put your answers in the chat as well? Okay, because we don't want to lose anything. So any thoughts you have, this is a really important question or set of questions for all of us to get as much as we possibly can out of being in part of this GCologist community. So go and gather in groups of 4s and 5s, put some answers in, and then we'll gather you all back in about 10 minutes or so. Okay, by my Playmaker Game Changer watch, that's roughly about 10 minutes. So if you can all come back to your seats, keep putting your answers into the hop-in chat. That's really well appreciated. And then we're going to Nigel's going to take us through the next part of the conversation. Can you all come back to your seats now, please? Thank you.
Testing one. You all right? Hi, everyone.
Just explain that we're all looking at the online stuff as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Is everybody comfortable? Seated? Good stuff. Just to let you know, everybody, that we're not looking at our phones for any other reason than looking at your feedback on the chat. So thank you very much for all that. Thank you very much also for putting the 1, 2, 3s together as well. That helps with the coding. So anybody of research nature knows that if somebody actually makes it job for you in coding, that's pretty good. And seriously, we will be coding these pieces of information, feeding it back generally, but also through each of the clubs as well. So what you've done here is fantastic because we've got a record of those things. So I think it's good we've got all this here, but has anybody got a burning question first of all, particularly on number 1 about what value, or a burning answer it should be, what value looks like? Anybody like to clarify that for us? In a nutshell. Go on.
They've gone shy all of a sudden.
We've got one at the back.
Oh, no, not shy anymore. Thank you. Why do they all go shy for? They all quite quickly. We asked them to do some work. Right, come on, Chris.
I think the biggest value for me as a relative newbie is stories of breakthrough that people have had from gaining insight from doing GC Index, because stories sell much more easily than data, I think. And particularly in the way I'm trying to use it with SMEs, I think there's, my sense is, and I might be completely wrong, that there's a lot of GCologists who use this with larger organizations. I could really do with some stories about breakthrough with SMEs, where you've got a business owner who, one of the reasons they're struggling to get to the next level is because they've maybe got 2 of the proclivities pretty high, lots of gaps that they either ignore or don't know how to access. So, yeah, more stories around SMEs would be good for me.
So do you want to take that one, Mark?
Yeah. Great comment, Chris. Thanks for that. Firstly, all the feedback and case studies that I've seen within the GC community do range between the SME end of the spectrum and big business. I mean, certainly in the first Growth Club, we talked to Tuition Extra. They are a 20-person headquartered business with 100 tutors throughout Kent. Very, very much in the SME space. I mean, I can talk to you separately, Chris, about that case study and give you some insight into that.
Yeah, and the format of the Change Club which we talked through was can we just create a fairly relaxed environment in which people feel like they can start to share those stories and start to co-create opportunities as well? So it's very much going to be, certainly the way we're thinking about organising the Change Club initially is very much around that story part that you're talking about there, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at the, what were some of the themes on the chat very quickly, and it's, the insight and collaboration. It sort of brings it together. People will be, GCologists will have done something similar to what you're trying to do or already involved in, and it's that sharing experience that is going to be, and it is very valuable. So, definitely with the Site Club, similar theme. What is it that people want to do? I've talked to a number of people, for example, who just would love to do, more presentation at particular conferences, but they just haven't got the time. They're running a busy business. So if we can help in any way, alleviate that, work with you on that, that would be one of the main goals with the Site Club.
So one other comment on that, and I'm sure I speak for all three of us. If anybody here has a great case study that they want to tell at any of the clubs, approach us. I mean, from our perspective, we want to open it up, stories, experiences from a client perspective. I would love to hear from people. I've got this great client story. Great, come and tell it. And I know that's the case for all three of us. Great.
So let's go to number 2. Join at least one club. Anybody got any thoughts on that? Whether they there's particular sort of interest in particular areas, or how do they see them maybe joining different, similar clubs? So anybody in the audience with an answer to that question, number 2?
We do have one on the chat.
I'm going to pick on you, Nick. Okay. I know, I was waiting. I was going to say, because I heard that. I'll let you speak. Thank you.
Hi, we have a workplace space for our GCologists at AstraZeneca, and I think there's about 50 of us. So if you can share some information about the clubs with us, because there's only 3 of us here today, then we can share it to that space, and maybe some of the others will join.
Thank you. Thank you. That's really, really powerful. Thank you very much. Simon, you had a point there.
Yeah, and just to reassure you as well that the clubs are open to all GCologists. So we'll definitely make sure the information comes around. That's great. So the question on or the point made in the chat is about return on time investment and making sure this is, the comment is not just about fellowship. And I think from our perspective, we can see the value of fellowship, and we know that from that there will be opportunities that arise. But the intention for all of the clubs is to be very pragmatic as well. So there's, each one is focused on, so how can we get some value out of whatever the next conversation is going to be?
Yeah, sure. And a very pragmatic point that I picked up on the chat as well is like, you've put these clubs on days or in the day where I can't make it because I'm busy delivering to a client or delivering in my business. If only I could have space to attend. 2 things there is we know that is timing is always an issue. So very similar to what I said, and I think I go with the other guys as well, that if you can't make it whatever time, you can still contribute, you can still get value out of it in that sense of engaging online. I've done most of my work already with the Site Club through email engagement, and it's created results. So as I say, you don't need to sort of have a meeting to get some value. The other point is what's very, very pertinent for international work. And I think I speak for all of us that we have obviously members in Asia, Gulf, Europe, Americas. Obviously, certain times are not going to fit certain time zones, so there would be some kind of either rotation in terms of those zones, and also maybe doubling up in one day. So just as a pragmatic alleviation at that point.
Chaps, we've got about 5 minutes left, but someone on the front row wanted to say something. Announce who you are, please.
For those who don't know me, Simon Etherington, I work for the GC Index. Just wanted to say as well, there is a bit of strategy around why we've got these 3 particular clubs to start with. And like we say, they are a pilot, so it doesn't stop us doing clubs of all different types around the world over time. We're just testing them out. We've now got 286, as of today, GC partners around the world. So these are companies as partners. We've got nearly 700 GCologists as well. So from that community, we started here because we had a lot of interest from the site community. What does this mean? Why is this different? How does it fit in with everything else? How can we delve into the science around it? And of course, Nigel's whole career and whole experience is in that space. And in fact, he's the person that helps us get engaged with people like British Psychological Society and so forth, and all that element as well. Then we've got Simon and change, because fundamentally every single company is going through change. And the amount of questions we get around change, transformation, how do we do things differently, how do we adapt, how do we align, how do we align our processes with new people, it's everything that we do. So that was a great starting point, if you like, from that piece. And of course, growth. I mean, we're all here to think about, as businesses, how do we grow? And that's the one that we've focused on. So just a bit of context around those three. They aren't the only ones. Over time, we'll have more as well as we go through it. So just to give that context as well. Thanks.
That's brilliant. Thank you. But I know you're about to say, but we've had a life sciences club, an international club. From Peter just mentioned it on the chat, an education club. You guys are pioneers for this, and we just don't want to let everyone just loose and do their own thing. I thought that was all right, but we had to have a strategy. So that's why we're here to help you guys grow that community. So, sorry.